Okay. Why is that? Why is it that now when the man is taken by another woman, your best friend, now he suddenly seems more attractive than he was before?
Goes back to the negative competition. And as women, when we share, we take someone into confidence. There are women who use that confidence and that information to destroy and to take away someone else's man. And it's terrible. It's terrible that human beings behave like that. That you think it's okay to do that. I think people really need to look at what their value system is. If this is your best friend, this is how you think about her, what kind of person are you?
Yeah.
So it goes back to...
And not to say that it doesn't happen with men, but rarely do you see... It does, but rarely do you see that happening with men, preying on your best friend's girlfriend.
It happens.
It happens.
A lot.
But same degree as to women?
It's the same.
Okay.
I would really say the only difference is that men are not in that bonding form, so they're not as informed because they don't talk as much about their relationships. They talk, but not as much. But women, like a woman, is fully informed about another guy because there's that sharing
talk
aspect.
a lot.
That doesn't mean it's wrong. I think the women that do that kind of stuff need to just question themselves and their morals and their values and where they live from. And I mean, we're all human. None of us are perfect. We all can make errors in life. However, if you're constantly living from a place where you're not honest, you're not really working from a place or living from a place of integrity, then, it's going to come and bite you.
Okay. Women talk a lot, like you mentioned, and we're very explicit in what we say, and we share everything and put it all out on the table. Should we stop doing that, or should we just talk about different stuff? Because in as much as the guys do get together, and we know they do this, but they don't necessarily give all the details. But women do. Can we just leave out some of the details when we're talking with our girlfriends?
No. How about instead of talking about this stuff, we start talking about meaningful stuff? If you're with a guy, you've chosen to be with this guy, get over yourself, clean up your act, and start living a good life with this person instead of moaning and groaning. Why do people come together only to moan and groan?
Women do that a lot.
Why? Why are you with someone if you want to complain about them? Go away. Do something else. Leave that poor man alone, if that's the case. And this works for men as well. If you want to complain about your wife, leave her. Instead, or your partner, instead, why don't we just change the whole scene? Why don't we start talking about things that matter? Why don't we start talking about the fact that we've come together? Why don't we talk about what do we want to do about our kids? What do we want to do about our lives together? How do we want to spend time? How do we want to share time? How do we want to grow our relationship? That's talking about substantive stuff that matters instead of complaining. We've gotten into we complain about everything. We complain about our men, our women, our government, our roads. We complain. Who actually sits down or stops to take some action to make it different?
However small. Okay, let's take another call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
What is your name, dear?
My name is Esther.
Okay, Esther, go ahead.
I'd like to say I do concur with that women are their worst enemies, because there are so many times women hate on each other. Let's put it like that. Like, I've realized most men, stretch marks are not an issue. But you see women are always like, oh, look at her, she has stretch marks, oh, look at her. But I actually deem them as God-given tattoos, It's something you should be proud of. It's who you are. It's not like anything bad. But I realize that women like to hate on each other, bring each other down, and this actually causes us to have so much insecurity within us. And I think as women, we should love ourselves, take ourselves for who we are, so that also we can have security in our relationships.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Esther. Let's take another phone call. Hello?
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you, sir?
Very fine. I'm Daniel Kongo from Lemuru.
Okay, Daniel?
Yeah, I have a query. I was asking, why do women, they go to their meetings and those congregations, they come up with ideas and they want to have a paradigm change in the house, everything which was working normally, now have to change direction. That develops a fear in me and also in my fellow men to what these women discuss in these chamas, because they come up with ideas. I'm not necessarily saying that these ideas are bad, but they come and change everything, that even everything that was working normally now becomes the wrong thing. So what do you do about that?
Okay, thanks for that, Daniel. We'll try and discuss that. Let's take another call. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. My name is Nancy.
Okay.
I want to contribute to the topic that you guys
Very
are
much.
discussing.
Thank you very much for your opinion, Nancy. Obviously talking about what you'd mentioned earlier, society and conforming and being made to think that way. Do you think men are now taking advantage of the fact that sometimes women don't get along and using it to play us against each other?
Who takes responsibility if they allow themselves to be played against each other?
Very well put. Very well said. We'll say no more on that one. Daniel talks about the meetings for the chamas and that. I was asking you about that earlier. Women, most of the time, do discuss parenting and that sort of thing. But a lot of people don't get the impression that they discuss it for, like, you know, in my house, this is the problem I have. And then everyone says, okay, I had the same problem and this is how I tackled it. But it's rather, my man doesn't do this. And we don't live in this good house. And of course, there's the other woman who'll show up and say, oh, well, my husband's the best, even though we know it's not true. How can we start to foster them to have meaningful discussions at these chamas, or when you meet your girlfriends for a drink and you invite them over for a sleepover on Friday night? How can we start to change ourselves so that we discuss things that make sense in our lives?
Amazing. It's just, a bulb's just gone up. We constantly talk about the problems. We don't talk about solutions. It's very, very simple. We can discuss the problem. We need to start becoming a solution result based people. Talk about the problem for 2 minutes and say, right, what are the options to resolve it? It's not like we're not going to have problems. We're going to have problems because life it's not problems, it's issues, it's challenges. And that's what makes us grow. That's what makes us learn. So this is going to be a lifelong process. Life is not going to be a straight line. The thing is, how long do you want to live in the problem? Get out of the problem, find solutions. So let's start talking about solutions. This is not working. How long have we talked about, this is not working in Kenya, this is not working in my home, this is not working at work. Okay, if it's not working, what are we going to do about it? So now the conversation shifts from staying in the problem and moaning and whinging to let's look at solutions. What are the solutions? And there's always more than one solution to an issue, right? And then how are you going to action it? Because talking about a solution isn't enough. You have to action it, to implement it, to change something. So if you're doing something, you're going to keep getting the same results. If you want different results, you have to change something and the result changes. It's so simple and it's so effective. So my challenge to everybody out there is, can you start talking about solutions? Look at the problem and start talking about solutions. And I'm so glad that 2 men have called in. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm very happy women called in as well.
Yes.
But the fact that 2 men called in, that makes it really interactive, because we're not living in this world as women alone,
as men
or
alone.
men alone. We
Indeed.
are here to be interactive.
Yeah.
We have relationships with each other. We cannot run away from each other. And it's not that one is the half of the other. We're all whole, and we have to interact together.
Okay. And I think that's what Nancy also mentioned,
Yes.
that it's our responsibility as society, not just about women to change their mindsets, but men need to do the same. Esther also talked about it in the beginning. She alluded to that. And it just brought this question to mind. Do you think women are fickle? Do we not think about the more serious stuff in life?
No, we
And
do.
is it just about how I look and
No, that's not true. Women have a lot of depth. I mean, as human beings, I know I'm here to talk about women, but I keep going back to men and women.
That's okay.
Because for me, I look at a human being, and yes, women have some different wiring than men, and And I don't think women are fickle. I think women have a lot of depth. I think women have a lot of potential. Women are amazing, as are men. Yeah. So, looking at it from a humanistic point, women are not fickle. They just don't know how to handle their emotions all the time. So they need to learn how to handle their emotions. They need to learn how to project themselves in a different way. They need to learn how to communicate in a different way. And this begins with taking the responsibility that I want to do things differently. And I don't want to be the one woman out of a million that's doing the same thing over and over. So no, we have a lot of intelligence, we're smart. I mean, human beings are amazing. So we need to take that and we need to start living it instead of shooting ourselves all the time.
Yeah, indeed. We're coming to the close of this now. Just your advice for women in terms of building each other up and self-esteem, and to be proud of who I am, and therefore not threatened by someone else who comes along who's got different abilities. They may be better, but they're also just different. You do this one way, I do this another. How can we start to appreciate each other so that, you know, every time women are meeting, the first assumption that comes to mind is not that, it's just gossip, 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 and chitter, chatter, chitter.
What I would suggest is that women actually sit down as individuals, and before they start shooting each other, they stop shooting themselves. Okay, so here's a suggestion, and it works. It really works. Sit down and write down all the things that you're good at, and then write on the same page on the other side all the things that you think you're not so good at, and really start evaluating yourself. You'll be surprised that the list that you're good at is always going to be longer than the list that you're not good at. So as you start that self-appreciation process, and you start looking at yourself, and you're never going to be someone else, and you start getting into this healthier relationship with yourself, and really looking at all the good things you're capable of doing, all the good things you do, and then you start moving your perspective. And then you start looking at other women and appreciating them for who they are, what they are. It starts to change the dynamics. And it's got to be genuine. It can't be that you start complimenting women just because you've heard this on TV now, yes, and then you start saying, oh, you're beautiful, or you're lovely, and you don't mean it.
Yes.
It's got to come from a place of being genuine. But it cannot happen until you start having that relationship with yourself. So that list, and working on the list of, hey, you really do wonderful things. The self-appreciation process starts to change towards, yeah, okay, I'm really not the way I see myself. And then start having communication that is different. Move from problem-based to solution-based. Start talking to women about how can we do it differently. Get the input. Mm-hmm. And when people start gossiping, say, you know what, I'm not doing this. I actually stand up and walk away and say, I'm not doing this. This is just not healthy, I'm not doing it. And people get offended, people get upset, and I don't mind. You know, when people get upset and offended, that means that they're actually going to think about what has happened.
Said, yes.
So they're going to move out of those comfort zones.
Okay, all right.
So that's a suggestion to start with.
Yeah, excellent. Appreciating yourself, and then that, of course, enables you to appreciate every other woman, and therefore having healthy relationships with other women. Thank you so much, Tazim, for your time this morning. This has been mind-blowing, to say the least.
Thank you.
All right. So we've been talking about the relationships between women and how we can foster them and make them better and healthier. And like Tazim says, it begins with appreciation of self. Once you're comfortable in your own skin, then you begin to appreciate other women for who they are. You can never be somebody else. But let this be the beginning of women starting to stick together, and for the right reasons, not just because we're all women, but getting together and having meaningful discussions that hopefully help to make a wonderful change in our lives. All right, that's it for NTV Lifestyle Relationships this morning. Thank you so much for your company today and throughout the week. Misiko Andere takes over next week on Lifestyle. I'll be taking a break. Have a lovely weekend.